You won't believe what just went down inside a packed church. At 75 years old, Gino Jennings didn't hold back. He confronted Pastor Tony Evans live, and what happened next left everyone speechless. This wasn't just a debate. It was a moment that shook the faith world to its core. Stay with me, because what you're about to see is the side of church leadership nobody talks about, until now. Tonight, we're diving deep into a confrontation that has everyone in the gospel community talking. Gino Jennings, a man known for his unwavering boldness and fiery preaching, stepped into the spotlight at 75 years old and directly challenged Pastor Tony Evans during a live church service. You won't believe what unfolded next. For decades, both men have commanded respect and influence in their congregations, but their paths rarely crossed, until now. This isn't just a clash of personalities, it's a battle of ideologies. A confrontation that exposes hidden tensions and sparks questions about leadership, authority, and faith. By the end of this video, you'll see rare footage, hear shocking statements, and understand why this moment is being called one of the most controversial encounters in modern gospel history. This is where it gets unbelievable, and it's a story that will stay with you long after the video ends. Before the confrontation even began, the atmosphere inside the church was electric. Hundreds of attendees had gathered for what was supposed to be a routine Sunday service. But little did they know, history was about to be made. Gino Jennings, a pastor with decades of experience and a reputation for speaking the truth no matter the cost, walked into the sanctuary with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. Pastor Tony Evans, equally respected and widely regarded as one of the most influential voices in gospel leadership, was leading the service that day. The room was filled with anticipation, yet no one expected the storm that was about to erupt. There were subtle signs of tension in the air, whispers, glances, and the quiet hum of congregants who sensed that something unusual was unfolding. Jennings didn't wait for an invitation. He approached the podium with a presence that demanded attention. In that moment, the energy shifted. Every eye in the room was locked on him. This wasn't just a casual exchange. This was a collision of two theological titans, each carrying decades of authority and conviction. And then, the first words were spoken, words that would immediately set the tone for what many are calling a historic showdown. But what Jennings said next was shocking, not just for the congregation, but for the entire gospel community watching this unfold. It's a moment that would leave even the most seasoned churchgoers questioning everything they thought they knew about leadership, doctrine, and accountability. Stay with me, because the confrontation is about to escalate in ways that nobody saw coming. As Jennings took his place at the podium, the room went silent. Every congregant could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a simple discussion about scripture or theology. This was a direct challenge that carried decades of unspoken tension. Gino Jennings, at 75, exuded a commanding presence, his voice steady, his gaze unwavering, and his words sharper than many expected from someone of his age. He began by addressing Pastor Tony Evans directly. The words were precise, calculated, and unapologetically bold. Jennings didn't hold back. He called out discrepancies in teaching methods, differences in doctrinal interpretation, and even subtle issues of leadership approach that he felt needed to be confronted. Every sentence landed like a thunderclap in the silent sanctuary, and you could almost hear the gasps ripple through the crowd. Tony Evans, known for his calm demeanor and measured responses, initially maintained composure. He listened carefully, nodding occasionally, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a spark that showed this confrontation was personal and that the stakes were high. What Jennings said next was the turning point. He didn't just question theology, he challenged authority, calling into question some of the choices made by Evans over the years. The tension escalated as congregants shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some whispered to each other, unsure whether to be shocked or impressed by Jennings's audacity. Others watched in awe, realizing they were witnessing something rare. Two influential leaders confronting each other openly with nothing held back. Then came the moment that would be replayed across social media and gospel communities worldwide. Jennings dropped a line that left even the most loyal followers of both pastors speechless. The statement was clear, direct, and carried an intensity that made it impossible for anyone to ignore. For a few tense seconds, time seemed to freeze. The congregation held their breath. Cameras captured every reaction: wide-eyed shock, nervous murmurs, and the subtle tightening of jaws. But what happened next would escalate the confrontation even further. In an unexpected twist, Evans responded, not defensively, but with a pointed counter-argument that revealed his own convictions and set the stage for an exchange that some are calling legendary. The room was now fully charged, a battleground of words and ideas, and it was clear that neither man was willing to back down. And just when the audience thought they had seen the full extent of the tension, Jennings leaned in, voice lowering but intensity rising, and said something that made even the camera operators pause. It's a line that, depending on how you interpret it, could either be seen as a masterful critique or a direct challenge that no one dared ignore. As the confrontation concluded, the sanctuary was electric, but the energy had shifted from tension to stunned silence. Congregants sat frozen, processing what they had just witnessed. Some were visibly shaken, unable to speak, while others whispered fervently to neighbors, recounting every sharp word and piercing glance exchanged between Jennings and Evans. It was a rare moment of collective disbelief, a shared experience that left an indelible mark on everyone present. Immediately, social media exploded. Clips of the confrontation went viral within hours, spreading across YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Viewers who weren't present at the service watched in awe as Gino Jennings, at 75, confronted one of the most respected voices in gospel ministry. Comments poured in from all over the world, some applauding Jennings for his courage, some defending Evans, and many simply trying to make sense of what had transpired. In gospel forums, the debate became heated. People dissected every statement, every tone, every pause. Questions that had lingered quietly in the community suddenly became front and center. Who truly represents biblical authority? How should leaders handle disagreements publicly? And most importantly, what does this confrontation reveal about the state of church leadership today? News outlets picked up the story, framing it as one of the most dramatic clashes in modern gospel history. Analysts pointed out that the significance wasn't just in the words exchanged, it was in the symbolism of two generations colliding, each with its own vision of faith, authority, and accountability. Many described it as a turning point, a moment that forced the gospel community to confront uncomfortable truths. Within the congregation itself, reactions were immediate and intense. Some members left the service in disbelief, others stayed to discuss the implications with friends and family, and a few even approached the pastors directly, seeking clarity. The emotional impact was palpable. For some, this was a wake-up call, a challenge to reflect on their own beliefs and loyalties. For others, it was validation, a public acknowledgement of frustrations or doubts they had quietly held for years. But the online reaction was where the story truly exploded. Influencers, vloggers, and independent gospel commentators began posting breakdowns of the confrontation. Hashtags started trending, and discussions that would normally take weeks to gain traction went viral in a matter of hours. Clips were dissected frame by frame, each gesture analyzed for hidden meaning. Memes and reaction videos multiplied, showing how the clash had transcended the church walls and entered mainstream conversation. Even within Evans' own community, the reactions were split. Some followers defended his approach, praising his calm and measured responses in the face of such direct criticism. Others expressed disappointment, questioning why certain points raised by Jennings were left unanswered or why the exchange had become so personal. Meanwhile, Jennings' supporters hailed him as a fearless truth-teller, someone willing to confront even the most established figures without fear or hesitation. And yet, amid the viral attention and heated debate, there remained a deeper, quieter story. Behind the headlines and hashtags was a moment of truth, an opportunity for introspection and dialogue about leadership, accountability, and integrity within the gospel world. This confrontation was no longer just a church event. It had become a cultural phenomenon, forcing believers and observers alike to reckon with the complexities of faith and authority. But perhaps the most surprising element of the aftermath was what happened next, behind closed doors. While the public watched the viral clips, a private conversation took place that very few would learn about, and it's a part of the story that changes everything you thought you knew about this encounter. While the congregation processed the live confrontation, the real story was unfolding behind closed doors, far from the cameras and the viral clips circulating online. Sources close to both Gino Jennings and Pastor Tony Evans have revealed that the tension between the two men had been building for years. Subtle theological disagreements, differing interpretations of leadership, and long-standing unspoken critiques had quietly simmered beneath the surface. The live confrontation was not a spontaneous outburst. It was the culmination of decades of professional rivalry and personal conviction. According to insiders, Jennings had prepared meticulously for this moment. Every statement, every challenge, every carefully chosen phrase was calculated to expose what he considered inconsistencies in Evans' teachings and leadership style. This wasn't about ego, it was about principle. For Jennings, the church is more than a building or a congregation, it is a sacred institution, and he felt a moral obligation to address what he saw as critical issues, even if it meant confronting one of the most respected pastors in the world. Evans, meanwhile, reportedly anticipated that Jennings might take a bold approach. His calm, measured demeanor during the service was no accident. It was a strategy honed over decades of handling criticism and confrontation. Sources say Evans believed that maintaining composure would demonstrate leadership under pressure, a model for his congregation and for viewers worldwide. But what even he may not have expected was the intensity and precision of Jennings's critique. After the service, both pastors reportedly met privately to discuss the events. While no official statement was released, insiders described the conversation as surprisingly candid. Jennings reportedly expressed his concerns with clarity and conviction, reiterating his belief that some church practices and interpretations needed to be reevaluated. Evans listened intently, responding thoughtfully, and while there were disagreements, there was also mutual respect. According to sources, both men acknowledged the historical significance of the encounter, understanding that this wasn't just a clash of personalities, but a moment that could influence the direction of gospel leadership for years to come. Interestingly, some of the most explosive moments that were captured on video only tell part of the story. Behind the scenes, there were subtle gestures, exchanges of eye contact, and private remarks that never made it to the public eye but added layers of complexity to the confrontation. For those watching closely, it became clear that both pastors were aware of the stakes, aware of the scrutiny, and aware that this encounter could define their legacies. The fallout also extended beyond the immediate participants. Staff members, volunteers, and church elders reported feeling the weight of the situation. Many admitted to being caught off guard by Jennings's direct approach and Evans' composed responses. Conversations that followed the service were intense and reflective, with some staff questioning how public confrontations should be handled and what lessons could be drawn from such a high-profile exchange. Even months later, the ripple effects are still being felt. Gospel leaders across the country have referenced the encounter in sermons, conferences, and discussions about accountability, transparency, and leadership. Jennings' boldness and Evans' measured approach have become case studies for those studying conflict resolution and influence within religious communities. And yet, despite the widespread coverage and public debate, there's one final detail, an unexpected development that has not yet been shared with the wider audience. It's a revelation that reframes everything, showing that even in moments of confrontation, there are layers of strategy, intention, and unseen influence shaping the outcome. What happened next may surprise you, and it's a side of the story that almost no one is talking about.